Welcome everyone to the DAZN Soccer Show. The Premier League came back and it came back with a bang over the weekend. I'm Adi Oladipo, joined by my two esteemed guests, Lianne Sanderson, former Arsenal forward, and former Man City defender Nedum Onouha as well. All right, let's start with the Manchester derby. I was going to call it the Man City derby. We might as well rename it the Man City derby. And Manchester City thrashing Manchester United 6-3. Nedum, I want to start with you. Obviously, look, you played for Man City. Was it a surprise scoreline? Did you expect that? I looked at Man United starting 11 and I thought, this game could be competitive. And also looked at the
Yeah,
recent results that Manchester United have had at the Etihad, and it's been good as well. But Haaland and Foden showed there are levels to this football game.
yeah, that's a fact actually. So I think last season City obviously won two games quite convincingly overall, but United do have a good feeling overall when they arrive at the Etihad, and it's kind of the reason why myself and other fans from my generation get a little bit nervous around derby days. Doesn't matter how well City are doing. It's like, but it's Man United, it's Man United. And then when you saw that Rodri wasn't playing and people were seeing Ruben Diaz was on the bench, you're sort of asking further questions, and United arriving with four, having won the previous four games. There is that sense of this is going to be close. And then within 10, 15 minutes, you could kind of get a feel for how the game was going to go. City scored a couple. They'd had a couple cleared off the line. They'd hit the post. And you're looking at United and wondering, how do they change from this? And the answer was they weren't able to. So I think in the end, the result, the 6-3 or whatever, I don't think anyone was really expecting that. No one's expecting a 4-0 at half-time because United appeared defensively quite solid. But as you mentioned, they have a Haaland, they have a Foden, they have a De Bruyne, they have a Bernardo Silva, they have a Grealish. I could keep going. And in the end, the quality was just too much, and tactically, mentally, physically, they just looked miles ahead of United on the day.
Yeah, Leanne, look, City have too many weapons, don't they? Nadim just reeled off some of the weapons they have, and then you look on the bench and you see more weapons as well. And I know you're a big fan of Jack Grealish, Leanne, and I knew from he ran at Dallo and Dallo got that yellow card, I thought the writing was on the wall immediately then. This is going to be a long day for Manchester United.
Yeah, from the get-go, I mean, obviously Dallo getting booked after 2-3 minutes into the game, you just could see the difference in quality, as much as it pains me to say it. Yes, we'd had 4 games on the spin without a loss, but it wasn't long ago. We was at the Brentford Community Stadium 4-0 down at half-time. Same thing on Brighton. So these things don't change overnight. But I just think the difference in the quality yesterday, I didn't expect us to win. I didn't, to be honest. And that sounds really weird coming from Man United perspective. But the quality that Manchester City have is on a different level. And I think you just always know they're going to turn up, regardless of Rodri not playing, Diaz not playing. You've got Gundogan, Foden, Haaland. The list is endless. The fact that Riyad Mahrez is on the bench just shows you the quality they have. And I know Pep Guardiola said in his pre-game his interview on the television that he doesn't have a lot of depth. I was thinking, who is this guy kidding? Because yes, they don't have all stars like all over the bench, but they do have quality players. And you look at Manchester United yesterday, and I said it many, many times, it looked like men against under fives, literally. Like we were so, so poor yesterday. Rashford, Sancho. I know Anthony scored an amazing goal, but you can't wait till the second half to start playing. And I feel like the 6-3 scoreline actually flattered us quite a bit because I think City were way better. And at halftime, I'm not going to lie, I was thinking it was going to be, sixes and sevens. Sometimes going in at halftime 4-0 down, it doesn't always work out that way. But the difference in quality just kind of astounded me a little bit. But we just didn't show up either. Our midfield was non-existent. And I just don't understand. I know Casemiro came into the game and he didn't have his best game when he came in, but we have to start this type of player, surely. Why would we get these players if we're not going to just start them? And I feel like with a manager like Pep Guardiola, if he got Casemiro in, he would start him.
Yeah, look, you're right. I mean, look, Man United have the players, right? There's no doubt about it. I mean, there was an amazing stat about the amount of money they spent on each squads, and United was actually slightly higher. So they've definitely got the players. You kind of wonder, though, the difference is the manager, right? And Pep, we know, is the best manager in the world. At the start of the season at Nedum, when they got rid of Sterling and Jesus, I thought it was a risk. You're getting rid of guaranteed goals, guaranteed assists, winners, everything, right? The two players that tick all the boxes. Haaland's come in. And look, this is supposed to be the toughest league in the world, the best defenders, all the games, the intensity levels of all the games are supposed to be really, really up there. 14 goals in 8 games in the Premier League. I mean, he's
Yeah,
thrown all these accolades to one side, really. He's destroying the Premier League.
yeah, he certainly is, and it's so strange to see because we're not used to seeing that. Like, he's 22 years old as well. Obviously, he's one of the best players in the world, but he's still just a young player that's still got the best years ahead of him potentially. But I think the way he came into the City side, you look at it, and for previous years, whether they were playing a false nine or playing with Aguero and whatever, like they were scoring 100 goals a season. So to bring in one of the best finishers, one of the best goal scorers in world football, but then to still have Kevin De Bruyne playing behind you, Like, that's one of the best 9-10 combinations you can probably find. Obviously, if people hate City, they hate City. But if you just love football, seeing those two play together is incredible. So, like I say, I was like you. It was such a shame to see Sterling go, because I see him in a City shirt and I see success. I see tons of goals. He's the second top scorer for Man City in the Premier League. That's behind Aguero. This is so incredible. What a player. And then seeing Jesus as well, the impact that he's had. This is someone who's won multiple Premier League titles. But then you bring in Haaland. Then you've got Alvarez behind him. And then you've got Grealish getting better. You've got Mahrez on the bench, for example, Foden, Bernardo Silva, Kevin De Bruyne. Like, every time I watch them and I see him doing it, and I see him doing what he's doing, like, he's got a knack for running where he thinks like a great ball would go. And he's got players behind him who play great balls. And as a defender, I'm like, well, what can I do at this point? Like, the ball for his second goal, the movement's fantastic. The delivery's perfect. As a defender, you're merely on the field just existing. You've basically got the worst view of the worst possible thing that could happen to you. But he's been incredible. City have gone through this sort of change. And the thing is, I think they can continue to get better. They're still not necessarily all on the same wavelength just yet. But when they do get rolling, there's the type of football they play. Like Lianne was saying, it's like there was no contest at times yesterday, and that's with a couple of people missing. So fair play to them for their recruitment. Fair play to them for some of those players that felt they had to leave to play more football because they're thriving themselves. But Man City, they push forward and they don't want to get left behind by anybody.
Yeah, that good. You can't even hate them. As much as it pains me to say it, like, the rivalry that Manchester United have with Liverpool will always be there with the likes of Leeds. But when you watch this Man City team, like last year when Man United were 4-0 down at half time against Liverpool, I actually cried at half time. I was that disappointed. Whereas yesterday, I was watching this game and I was thinking, Foden's finish on the front post, he made it look easy. Like, that is not an easy finish when he just scooped it into the back of the net. And sometimes you got to hold your hands up and just say, this team is better. But also, we've spent a lot of money. Manchester United spent a lot of money, but look at the difference. So it isn't always about money. I think sometimes people discredit Pep because they talk about how much money is being spent. But Manchester United spent a lot of money, and these players just don't seem to be performing. And a lot of the times yesterday, a lot of my Manchester United friends, were saying we bottled it.
That wasn't the only derby in the Premier League. There was another one as well. The North London derby was on the weekend. Massive game for Arsenal. The acid test, really. Can you beat a fellow top four team in your backyard? And they didn't just beat a Tottenham team managed by Antonio Conte. I thought they outplayed them as well, Lianne.
Yeah, I thought Tottenham were poor. I felt like, we spoke on the show last week. I thought it was going to be probably the best North London derby we've seen in a long time when it comes to quality, evenly matched. But Mikel Arteta just seemed to get the better of Antonio Conte at the weekend, and I don't think Tottenham showed up. I think the midfield got overran. I thought Arsenal played really, really well, and from the get-go, even when I don't think that was a red card, but I don't think that's the only reason why, Arsenal ended up winning the game based upon that.
Nedum, when you look at Arsenal, obviously, I think Man City are going to run away with the league. I really do. I think they could touch that 100-point barrier. When you look at a team that could challenge them, Liverpool have sort of faltered already. We'll talk about Liverpool a bit later. Tottenham will maybe the team. Could it be Arsenal? If we go on the first 8 games, are they the team that are going to push City, do you think?
I think at this moment in time, when you see the wins they have on the board and the confidence they have from it, like, they won't be fearing anybody, because in this time, I think they've got Liverpool coming up this weekend. That's a big game. That could be a big game for their own confidence as well, because, Liverpool for the last 2-3 years have very much been a part of that title race. So why would we doubt the team that's ahead of Man City at this moment in time when Man City look incredible? And I think for Arsenal, I think one thing which we sort of get wrong, I believe, overall, is that we say, well, who have they beaten? But that conversation about, well, who have they beaten, are the reasons why City and Liverpool get 90-plus points every season, because they beat the bottom teams over and over. They beat them twice over. You beat the bottom 10 teams twice over, that's 60 points. When you look at Arsenal and other sides coming the end of the season, the head-to-heads can matter, but they only matter if you set them up correctly by beating all those teams who are below you, and really accruing those points. So as Arsenal are in this moment now, listen, they're a side you don't want to play against. They've got a great front line in Martinelli, in Saka, and Jesus. They've got, the newly reformed Xhaka getting up and impacting the game with goals and the like. They look defensively solid. So why can't they get tons of points off teams who we expect them to beat? Because historically, it's not necessarily always been that case, because we go back a year and they're losing to Brentford, they lose to somebody else, and before you know it, people start saying they're not good enough.
Yeah, I don't see why Arsenal can't be contenders. I think because we see last year, how they threw away being in the top 4. If we get to Christmas and Arsenal still going in the way they're doing, then maybe we need to start considering them because, as we just said, Brentford, Fulham, those types of games at the community stadium, they push Brentford aside. And Brentford are in a really good flow, a run of games, playing well. So I think at times, we have to sometimes put a little bit of respect on Arsenal's name, because I know their fans feel like people don't ever give them the credit they deserve. But you can see Mikel Arteta's plan finally coming into fruition, because I questioned him. He won the FA Cup as soon as he got in there, and everyone used to talk about him being, Pep's understudy. But really, what had he done from a managerial perspective? And I think now you can see these young players, Odegaard, Saliba. I mean, Saliba at the weekend again was absolutely incredible. And this is a player that's gone out on loan, been there for a couple of years. And Mikel Arteta seems to have a plan. And I think that the documentary has seemed to have helped them, for our Arsenal fans to see the plan that's coming ahead. Because I think with footballers, people often think that because they don't look like some of them when they're coming off the pitch, they care. They do care. But just because they don't show it in the way that you expect them to, you could see from the documentary. And yeah, it's only a documentary, but I think we saw a glimpse behind the scenes of what type of manager Mikel Arteta is. And I think it's almost shown the fans he is the man to believe in.
Yeah, look, so far so good for Arsenal. They sit top of the table. Man City second. We've spoken about them. Let's talk about Liverpool now. We played Brighton at Anfield, a 3-3 draw. Liverpool 8th in the Premier League, and no one would have predicted that at the start of the season. Yes, I know they lost Sadio Mane, but you think of the inclusions that have come into the club: Darwin Núñez, Luis Diaz coming in January. Nedum, what's gone wrong at Liverpool? A lot of people focus on that engine room in the midfield. Is it more than that?
I think it potentially is. I think you mentioned Mane leaving, and he's been a stalwart for the last few years. But like you say, they did have Luis Diaz, who came in from January. And then in Darwin Núñez, there was hope that he was going to do something as well. But it seems like Firmino's kind of taken up that mantle at this moment in time. But I think the other side of this is it's not necessarily essentially just how Liverpool are playing, because they are making mistakes. But once you see those mistakes happen on your screen, once you see them on video, teams that come and play against you now, they think they sense a weakness. And so in times gone by, whereby they'd probably be more on the back foot, now they're really taking it to you. The belief is that you'll be able to score against Liverpool. And if you're scoring against them, you're changing the tone of the game. Belief is if you go and do this against them, this is their weakness. I think when sides start to show that, it kind of puts them on the back foot. And we saw that from early doors in the season. I think it was the Fulham game, to start with, and a couple of the games after that. And now, going into any particular game, for as good a player as he is, you'll do well to not find a team that says, go and try and play up against Trent, or he will leave space for you.
Lianne, Klopp he said some interesting things in his post-match press conference, but one of the things he spoke about was confidence, and he kind of likened it to a delicate flower, and he said it's like a flower being crushed. The Liverpool team have no confidence. It's strange though, this is a Liverpool team 2.5, 3 months ago, we're going for the quadruple. How has it gone from that to this so quickly?
Yeah, I mean, I think that sometimes Jurgen Klopp makes too many excuses. I think last year when they were losing games, he was questioning, kickoff times, those types of things. I think Jurgen Klopp's one of the best managers in the world. But at some point, he has to go back and take a look. I mean, I'm not a sports scientist, but they pick up too many injuries. And from what I've heard and from what I've gathered, they train as intensely as they play. And there comes a point with any player, you might get away with that for 2 or 3 years. I think that's why Antonio Conte only stays at a club for about 2-3 seasons, because from what I heard, the training, that they do when I got to Juventus is so intense, the players were absolutely blowing. So I think that plays a factor in it. And you have to look at that as well, because we know Jurgen Klopp wants to play the same 11 most games, and I think at the same time, Darwin Núñez, Salah's not scoring, is he? And obviously they're heavily reliant upon that. I think Mane leaving, I say it time and time again, I sound like a stuck record. I can't believe, at the end of the day, if a player wants to leave, they're going to leave, aren't they? But the way they let him go, you didn't realise how much of a catalyst he was for that team.
Yeah, look, big trouble for Liverpool. And hopefully it's a top 4 spot for my club. Big wins as well. Let's not forget for Frank Lampard, big win for Everton, big win for David Moyes, who was under pressure as well, and a big win for Graham Potter, his first win as Chelsea manager. So look, loads more to discuss when it comes to Premier League. The Premier League is back, and football is a good place when it is back. Up next, though, we're going to discuss a big game for England's women's team. The European champions take on the world champions, the USA, this Friday at Wembley Stadium.